Hi, my name is Alex Dudley. This is Applied Movement Mechanics, Practical Assignment 1. I'm here today to demonstrate some movement patterns and the planes and axes that these movements occur on. So I'm at home in my living room right here with my 5-month-old baby, so if you hear noises in the background, it's him. And I thought before I got into the movement patterns that we're asked to describe today, I would explain the three singular planes that movement occurs on. So to help me with this, I'm going to use my fireplace mantle. I want you to think of this white fireplace as a plane. So the first plane I'm going to describe is the frontal plane. The frontal plane runs laterally and separates your body into anterior and posterior segments. So here's my frontal plane. It's running laterally. I got a front half, and if it was bisecting my body, I'd have a back half. The second plane of movement is the frontal plane. Or sorry, that was the frontal plane, the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane runs anterior posteriorly and separates your body into left and right halves. So if I turn here, this would be my sagittal plane. The third plane, you kind of have to ignore the fireplace, would be the transverse plane. And the transverse plane runs, essentially it splits your body into inferior and superior segments. And there's axes. Axes run at a 90-degree angle to the plane. So when you have your frontal plane, you're going to have a sagittal axis. When you have a sagittal plane, you're going to have a frontal axis. And when you have the transverse plane, you're going to have a vertical axis. This is very, very simple terms. Most movement is multiplanar and happens on in multiple planes at the same time. And hence the axis would be not the same. But for today's movements, that's what we're gonna go with that. So first movement is shoulder adduction and abduction. This is the glenohumeral joint, shoulder joint. I like to think of adduction as adding. It's bringing to your body. And abduction, AB, would then be taking away from your body. So shoulder adduction would be bringing it towards my body. Abduction, taking it away. As you can see, this is happening on the frontal plane, so there would be a sagittal axis here. Everyday movement would be jumping jacks. Shoulder adduction, abduction. The next movement is lumbar spine flexion. So your lumbar spine, your lower back, and lateral, so to the side. Medial will be to the middle of the body, lateral to the side of your body, and flexion. So lateral lumbar flexion looks like this. Right, I've decreased the angle here, and as you can see, it's also happening on the frontal plane, so there would be a sagittal axis. The next movement is shoulder girdle protraction and retraction. So the shoulder girdle is your scapula, your AC joint, clavicle. This happens on the sagittal plane, so I'm going to spin. Sagittal plane, so we're going to have a frontal axis. Protraction is essentially bringing that girdle forward. Retraction, bringing that girdle back. And a real kind of everyday application of this movement would be push-ups. So if I get into the top of my push-up position here, really push down to the ground, my shoulder girdle has protraction. And as I get to the bottom of my push-up, my shoulder girdle retraction. All right, the next one is knee flexion and extension. This also happens on the sagittal plane with a frontal axis. So knee flexion would be to get myself down into a squat. I now have decreased the angle of my knees. My knees are flexed. To go into knee extension, I'm going to stand myself up. And now knee extension. Good example, another example of knee extension, kind of here. My leg's extended, my knee is extended, kicking a soccer ball, if you will. So the next one, the last movement here, is hip internal or medial rotation and external lateral rotation. So this actually happens on the transverse plane, so ignore the fireplace. Internal medial rotation is your hip kind of coming in like this. So then external lateral rotation is your hip like this. Some real life applications, I guess if you are a good dancer, I'm not, so I won't. But I like to think of playing hockey. You take a slap shot, you wind up, right? Your hips, here I got some internal rotation here. I got some lateral rotation here. As I follow through, this hip is now medially rotating, this hip laterally rotating. Golf club, golf swing would be the same application. And as I mentioned, that's on the transverse plane, so there's a vertical axis. As my examples, those are multiplanar movements because there's a lot of things going on, but I just wanted to give you an example of the hip motion. So the last part of this was to describe the term tense integrity. I will say that wrong this entire time, so ignore me now. What it essentially is tensional integrity. And to help me explain this, I'm going to grab my son Jackson, so give me 1 sec here. Come here, big guy. Ooh. Jackson's 5 months old. He's going to help me explain this. So, tensional integrity, tensegrity. Your body has internal and external forces acting upon it all the time. You have gravity, kind of pushing down. You have ground force reaction, pushing up. And then inside your body, your muscles push and pull. They oppose each other. These forces are acting all the time on you. So tense integrity is that balance. It's finding harmony between all the opposing forces to create intentional desired movement, whether that be stability or actual movement. So I like to think of me standing here, holding my son, get myself into a good position. I have tense integrity. My body is, I'm tight, I'm keeping my spine organized, I think I'm in a good position, and I have muscles pulling and pushing each other to keep my spine tight, to keep myself erect. I'm opposing gravity and opposing the ground to keep myself here. If I wanted to move, take a step forward, as I lift my leg to walk, gravity is pushing down on my leg, and I have forces in my leg counteracting gravity to take a step. That is controlled, intentional movement. I have tense integrity. There's that synergy. Everything's working together to create balance. Now, I thought of a good way of describing tense integrity to show non-tense integrity. Enter Jackson. Jackson's 5 months old, and he just gained head control, I'd say a couple weeks ago. So if I hold Jackson up here, he's got pretty good control of his head. A couple weeks ago, his head would have been whoop, whoop, right? So his neck muscles, the muscles in his body, weren't able to counteract gravity, right? So he didn't have tense integrity, and he still doesn't. If I sit him down here, right, I can sit, no problem. Look at me right now, right? Sitting up just fine. If I let go of Jackson, whoop, down he goes. Whoop, down he goes, right? He's not able to counteract those opposing forces, so he doesn't have tense integrity. So there you go. I thought that would be a good way of demonstrating what tense integrity is. I'm able to sit here, work together in synergy. Jackson, not so much. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.